All right. I am here with Suli Ali, and he is the founder of Ali Capital. How's it going, Suli?
What's up, Steve? So excited to chat.
Yeah,
Let's
we were
do
just catching
this.
up. We were catching up before we started recording, and we have quite a fun path that crossed many years ago in San Francisco. But before we dig into that, let's talk about you. Let's talk about your background. What got you into business originally?
Yeah, my background is I went to Georgia Tech undergrad and studied computer science. Worked at Microsoft for 3.5 years after that, and then I've been an entrepreneur and investor for like 15, 16 years. Um, you really couldn't be my father's son and not be an entrepreneur. We moved to the United States and when I was 7 years old, and from Pakistan, and we when we came to the U.S., he was like, "Okay, I'm going to try and buy a business that I can operate and make money from." And the way he went about doing that was he would go look in the newspaper for businesses for sale, and then he would have me or my brother call the brokers and say, "Hey, I saw you've got this Dunkin' Donuts for sale in downtown Chicago. Tell me about it." And the broker would be like, "You sound like you're 7 years old." And I'd be like, "No, I'm actually 8 years old. And I'm calling on behalf of my father. He has these questions." And my father was like, "Oh, your English is better than mine, so you go ask the questions." And I don't know how much of it was that he thought that was the case, and how much of it was he was just like training his kids to be entrepreneurs. So ever since then, I've gotten very used to the world of business and asking people questions and participating in it.
Wow.
And
Nice. Nice. At,
yes, I
at
probably
8 years
called
old.
hundreds. Yeah, I probably called hundreds of people about their business for sale or piece of real estate for sale um, before I was like 15 years old. And then my parents bought a closed gas station at a auction, and that became the business that they started and that we kind of ran as a family. So starting at the age of 13, 14, I started working at the gas station and worked there until I left for college, actually. Um, and so I think that got me introduced to the world of business and just made me comfortable and interested and excited about it. And then I studied computer science in undergrad. I did that because I went to school in 1999, and there were all of these people on CNBC that were like, "I'm 25 years old. I started a company and I'm taking it public," or "I started a company and I sold it." And they kind of they were having a lot of success early on as entrepreneurs. And the other kind of businesses, the other jobs that I was interviewing for outside of tech were very, like, I would interview for management consulting roles. And they were like, "Oh, you have to pay your dues for 3 years before you even get to, interact with the client." And it seemed like a very hierarchical organization without, where I wouldn't get real autonomy or like authority until I was years in the career. So I was like, "Oh, I don't want to be that. I don't want to do that. I want to try and do this tech thing because it's a much faster path to being successful." And and that's all I wanted as a kid. Like as immigrants, my parents just trained us to want success so badly because they came to the U.S. and they were like, "We just want our kids to get all of the fruits of their labor and enjoy all that the United States has to offer in terms of like a great place to live, safety, joy, and also like business success."
Hmm. Got it.
So
Got it.
even on my first day, so I went to Georgia Tech undergrad, studied computer science, graduated. I interviewed at 10 different companies to figure out where I wanted to go. And I ended up at Microsoft in Redmond, Washington at, Microsoft headquarters. And on my first day there, you go through orientation for new employees. Somebody who's like president of some division at Microsoft comes in and gives you like a Steve Ballmer, like, let's go, we're at Microsoft, let's win, let's win, let's win type speech. And then you do that for half the day. Then you go to the building on the Microsoft campus that is your building, the building you're going to work out of. And then you go to your office. It's got your name on the door. Somebody's already set up your computer for you. You have a phone that has 80 buttons on it. And so the first thing I do is get to my office and I call my dad and I say, "Hey, Dad, I'm in my new office. It's dope. I only do dope things," like that Dave Chappelle. Dave Chappelle has that story of Kanye West where he's like, Kanye is watching Dave Chappelle do the Dave Chappelle show, and somebody calls Kanye on the phone, and he says, "Hey, it's Kanye. I'm doing something dope. I can't talk right now because I only do dope things," and hangs up. That's how I felt in that moment. And so I call my dad, and he's like, "Oh yeah, this, you got a job at Microsoft. Cool, big deal. You should just quit your job immediately and start your own business. It's the only way you're gonna be happy and succeed. Grinding it out at Microsoft isn't going to do anything for you." So I didn't really quite believe him at that moment because it was my literal first day as with a job anywhere. But 3.5 years later, I was like, "Oh, he was right. I should quit and start my own business." And startups are awesome. I'd flown down from Redmond to Y Combinator Startup School in 2007. Mark Zuckerberg had spoken, and so had all of these other people, and they were just like, "Come to Silicon Valley, do a startup. It's the only way." And so because of that, and this guy that I worked for at Microsoft had been there for 25 years. We'd been working on this stealth product called Windows Home Server. We went down to CES in Las Vegas as a team of 25 people to announce the product. And Bill Gates announces it during the keynote to CES, his last keynote to CES. And then we all go out to dinner, the 25-person team. And this guy who's been at Microsoft for so long, Charlie Kindle, gets up in front of everybody to do a toast. And he is so happy about this product that he conceived of being born that he starts crying as a 45, 50-year-old male in front of his whole team. And I realized in that moment that I was really proud of the work that we had done, but I didn't feel that level of pride or connection to the thing. So I literally went to his office the week we got back from CES and said, "Hey, what you feel for Windows Home Server, I want to feel for something. And I don't want to wait 25 years at Microsoft. So I think I'm going to quit and start my own thing." So I quit. All these people at Microsoft that I work with were like, "Oh, you'll be back." They thought that I already had been working on something on the side, and that it was already working. And I was like, "Look, I don't know if I'm going to succeed as an entrepreneur or not, but I'd rather die out there than live here for 10 more years and just work at Microsoft for 15 years. Which is insane because a couple of the people that I work with, they've worked there for 20 years at this point and are, just that locked in at Microsoft. So anyway, that's the kind of story of me quitting Microsoft at the beginning of my career. And then I started a company kind of by accident. The Facebook app platform had launched. This is in 2008. I went to visit my parents in Florida. I got really bored and just started working on a Facebook app. And it was called Superlatives, and it took off right away. My goal was to get 100 people to use it, and within a week, 1 million people had used it on Facebook. And a friend of mine from college, my best friend from college, had quit his job, and so I was like, "Oh, let's work together on this." And so we started working on it. We still thought it was just a toy and stupid, but this guy who's now famous, Naval Ravikant, found us on Facebook and said, "Hey, let's talk." And I got on the phone with him, and he was like, "I love this Facebook app. Um, Everything that's on the internet will be rebuilt inside Facebook. Commerce will happen inside Facebook. There will be an Amazon inside Facebook. Airline tickets will be purchased inside Facebook. Um, so I'm investing in companies that are building on the Facebook platform. Why don't you fly out to San Francisco tomorrow and let's meet in person and see if we hit it off?" And so I bought a $900 one-way ticket for the next day from Florida to San Francisco, met with him. He asked me a bunch of questions, just loved I'd studied computer science in undergrad, so loved the technical background, loved that I'd worked at Microsoft and, um, had that taste of corporate America that made me be like, I will die, but I will not go back to corporate America. Um, and just love the traction that we had with the app that we built. So he said, "Okay, love what you're doing. Here's a term sheet for $200,000. Sign it right now. I'll wire you the money. Let's go." And gave me a term sheet. Had all these terms on it I didn't understand, like common stock and preferred stock and all this stuff. And so I didn't take the money, but he convinced me that what I was working on wasn't entirely stupid. So I went back to Florida and started taking it a little bit more seriously. Actually moved to Atlanta, where my friend was, who'd gone to Georgia Tech with me. And my sister had a 2-bedroom apartment in downtown Atlanta. She lived in one bedroom. I took the other bedroom. And then we converted the living room into an office. And we hired a couple of Georgia Tech engineers, and my co-founder came, and we started building more Facebook apps. And really, we made every mistake an entrepreneur could possibly make. We didn't know what KPIs mattered. We built against the wrong KPIs. We hired the wrong people. We didn't have a coherent product strategy. We didn't think about monetization. We didn't think about the durability of anything that we were building. So we just built all the wrong things and hired all the wrong people. And after 8 months, we were both like, okay, we don't know exactly what we've done wrong, but we know we've taken a wrong turn somewhere. We should try and sell this business. So we went to a conference that was a Facebook app conference called Graphing Social Patterns, put on by this guy, Dave McClure, in San Diego. And so we went there, and our only goal was, let's try to sell this business for as much money as possible, but kind of immediately, because we made a bunch of wrong decisions, and we're not sure that there's durable value here. So we met this guy at the conference, Shervin Pishavar, and he was like, "I know who you guys are. You guys built that app, Superlatives, and these other apps." And we were like, "Yeah, that's us." And he had gotten a term sheet from Founders Fund and Greylock to do a Facebook app, a roll-up. So he'd gotten $15 million to go buy a bunch of Facebook app companies, smash them together with the intent of creating, $50 million, $100 million, $200 million of value. So he kind of had to go buy companies at this conference in order to close on that term sheet. So he takes us out to lunch and says, "Hey, want to buy your business?" We say, "Okay, we're open to that idea." Our heart is beating like 1,000 beats a minute, because all we want to do is sell the business for any amount of money. And so he says, "Okay." And he's a pretty dramatic guy. So he writes a number on a napkin and slides it over to us. And we look at it, it says $2 million. So we're like, "Oh, that's awesome. Let's do it. Let's do the deal right now." And so we do a handshake that, all right, let's close this thing. Then we go back to Florida. He goes back to wherever he's living at the time. And then he sends us a contract to make the purchase. And we hire a lawyer. The lawyer marks it up and has like 100 markups on it. And we go to the lawyer and say, what the fuck are these 100 markups? We're trying to sell this business. Are you trying to destroy this deal? You can only have 6 things that you put on here, 6 markups, and all 6 of those are things that we will concede, but we don't want to just look like we're signing the first version of the agreement. So let's pick 6 material things and let's try and find something that we can give them for each of these 6. And so that's exactly what we did. Had really light markup, closed the transaction really quickly, sold the business. And Sherman actually renegotiated it because he was like, oh, these guys do want to sell the business really aggressively. So instead of $2 million, we sold it for 1.75. And then we signed the deal and it was great. The money showed up in our bank account and, we made more than $1 million, or close to $1 million each. And we're like, awesome, this is fantastic.
Nice.
And yeah, I just felt like I was on top of the world. And I'd made $1 million at the age of probably 27 or 28. And I was like, this is great. I've achieved all the pinnacle of success that I aspire to.
Nice. And how soon after that did you dive back in and start the next company?
Way too fast. So I took that money and I gave it to my father and said, and he was like, okay, I'm going to go buy real estate with this. This was in 2008, 2009. So the great financial crisis had happened and he was living in Florida. All the real estate prices around him were crumbling. So he took that money and he started buying real estate with it. So the money kind of disappeared pretty quickly. So then I was like, okay, I better get back to work. And I hooked up with a friend of mine from high school and we just started jamming on ideas and started making them. So we had a bunch of different ideas. Like the first one was, let's build Twitter for colleges. And after 2 months, we were like, actually, Twitter for colleges is just Twitter. So we kind of gave up on that idea. And that first company, Esgut, started and sold for $1.75 million in 8 months. And we weren't intending on starting a company, and it just kind of happened. This next time, 18 months in, we made no progress on it. We just worked on a bunch of ideas and we're like, all the things that we've done were a waste of time and we shouldn't be, this is not going well. We were just beating our head against the wall. And then a friend of mine from Microsoft had started a mobile ad network and he called me up and said, hey, we can push any app to the top of the iOS App Store. Why don't you make an app and we'll push it up to the top of the App Store? And not just any app, you should make a game because games generate tons of revenue. So why don't you make a game? We'll push it up to the top of the App Store. You'll put our ads in your game. So we'll generate revenue from that. And we'll keep half the revenue, you keep half the revenue. It was some construct like that. And so I said, okay, well, we've been beating our heads against the wall for 18 months. Let's try it. So we get this guy who had built an iOS app to work with us for 3 weeks, and we build a mobile game. We actually do a hackathon where we rent a villa in near Tulum in Mexico, live there for 2 weeks, or maybe it was just 10 days, and make this app and submit it to the App Store. We launched the app. Sure enough, my friend pushes it to the top of the App Store. We get 100,000 downloads in the first day and start generating revenue immediately. So in the first month, we generate $500,000 in revenue. So we're like, oh, this is amazing. This is working. Let's go. The next month, same thing, 500,000 revenue. And so we're like, awesome, this is working. We start hiring people. At that time, we were just 3 people or 4 people. We start hiring people and we say, okay, we're going to go for it. We're going to build the Zynga of mobile. So we're going to try and dominate mobile gaming. Mm-hmm. So we build another game. It also takes off. We now are generating $10-11 million a year revenue run rate. And some VCs come to us and say, hey, we love what you guys are doing. We want to invest in this space. And they meet with us and ask us a bunch of questions like, what's your CAC? What's your LTV? If we gave you $5 million, how much more revenue could you generate? And we didn't even understand the questions they were asking. Like, I had to Google CAC in the middle of the meeting to be like, oh, customer acquisition costs, LTV, lifetime value. Oh, okay. So what these guys are asking us is, if they give us money, can we use that to buy ads? Can we use that $5 million to buy ads and then generate $10 million or $20 million in LTV out the other side? And then if we can spend 5 million and generate 20 million, oh my God, there's a business here where we can make 15 million in profit. So through that conversation, we were like, wow, VCs are smart. They like understand stuff we don't even think about. Let's go raise some money from them. So we got a term sheet from this firm, Redpoint. And then we took that term sheet and shopped it up and down Sand Hill Road. I think they gave us a term sheet for 5 million at like 20 million per year, something like that. And then we go up and down Sand Hill Road. We get a bunch of other term sheets. One of them is from Andreessen Horowitz. We get a term sheet from Mark Andreessen. He actually calls me on Christmas Eve from his house at like 10 p.m. He's like, hey, we have a party at my house, but let me just tell you what this term sheet's going to be, and then I'll send it right over. Just give me 5 minutes. So we get a term sheet for, I think it was 10 million at first. I think they gave us two term sheets, actually. One was for 10 million and the other was for 18 million. So we took the one for 18 million. Including that was 5 million of secondary. So me and my co-founder got $5 million out of the business, and 13 million went into the business. So we take that money and we say, all right, let's go at this even harder. Let's like double the intensity that we've been approaching this with. And we start hiring more people, building more games. And it's going really well for another 24 months. You know, we're trying to keep the company at break even. We've hired 160 people. We're generating 40 million a year in revenue. And our business became exactly what those VCs told us, like acquire a customer for $1 and generate $2.50 of revenue from that customer. So every time we spend money on acquiring a customer, we generate more profit. But after a little while, a bunch of other competitors come onto the scene. These Japanese mobile gaming companies are making so much money in Japan, $1 billion a quarter of profit, but they're saturating the Japanese market. So they come to the US and they say, okay, we're going to go and spend money here acquiring customers. So basically, they drive the cost of customer acquisition up to $4, $5, $8. And all of a sudden, every time we spend money acquiring a customer, we're now losing money. So our entire business basically runs into a brick wall. And we realize we're fucked, that we don't have a way to make the unit economics of our business work. So we try to brainstorm new ideas on how to make our business make sense. And me and this guy, Andrew Green, come up with this idea of, well, what if we license media properties from media companies, and then we make games using those brands? That will allow us to get 40, 50 million people to go download one of our games without having to spend money to drive those customers. Mm-hmm. And instead of marketing costs, we'll have to pay them a licensing fee. And so we do that. We license Family Guy from Fox. We pay Fox $10 million for that license. And we launch the game. We get 50 million people to download it in the first, I think, 18, 24 months. And the game goes on to do, 300 to 400 million in revenue. So it really turns the business around. So when we ran into a brick wall, we had 150 people. I got up in front of everybody, called an all hands meeting and said, hey, today we're going to let go of 75 people. And we fired 75 people in one day. So we had 75 people left because we basically built the entire company on just the Family Guy game. We take all the money we have and give it to Fox. We make the Family Guy game and it all works out. We then go get a license for Marvel and a license for Harry Potter to make the first ever Harry Potter mobile game. And then somebody comes to us and says, hey, we love the business. We want to buy it. And we hire an investment banker. We hire an investment banker that's an experienced banker in mobile gaming that sold businesses around our size. And we're doing something like 85 million in revenue, 15 million in EBITDA, and sell the business through this awesome banker, Dick Filippini, great guy, love him to this day. And we sell the business to a company called Jam City, which is another mobile games business based in LA, started by this guy, Krista Wolf, who was the MySpace founder and CEO. Um, and so, yeah, they buy the business. There's an earnout that is based on how successful the next set of games are that we launch. Um, we make a Harry Potter mobile game, and it's our magnum opus as a company. I think it's done more than 500 million or 600 million in revenue, um, and pays for the acquisition for Jam City, and helps us achieve our earnout. And so it ends up being this like win-win-win for everybody involved. Um,
Nice.
yeah,
And the after that went through, did you guys shop it around when you were working with the iBanker, or was it just Jam City who came forward with
yeah,
the
we
the
shopped it
one that you
around. We shopped it
okay?
around. I think we had three offers. Um, and so our investment banker, helped us kind of bump the offers up a little bit. Um, and then we went with Jam City because we just like those guys the best. They were very
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurial. They were based in LA. Um, Chris started MySpace, which I think is super awesome. And
Yeah.
they were, they were they were like, we're going to take Jam City public, and here's all of the things that are going right inside of our business.
Mm-hmm.
So the terms were great, the people were great, and it just seemed like a really good fit from a cultural and business perspective. So that's why we went with them.
Nice. And for people that are listening about being prepared, I think that's a huge question. Obviously, timing is another one, but being prepared, how did you guys prepare for the exit?
Well, we did a bunch of things when we were like, okay, let's try to. We got into a place where we had Family Guy successful and Harry Potter license, and we were like, okay, this seems like a pretty good time to sell the business because all of our metrics are up and to the right, and the story is really clear, and everyone is really excited about the Harry Potter license. So we were like, that timing is really great right now. And then timing was also great from a market perspective. There were a bunch of people that were acquiring companies at that time for a bunch of money. And then we kind of looked internally and said, okay, what would somebody else want in our business? Like looking at our business from the outside, what do we see? And so we saw that there were a couple of holes in our business. So one was like we hadn't really built out the management team as well as we could have. So we kind of set the management team up a little bit better, and we're like, okay, we're gonna have a clear like executive team, and here's who's in it, and here's what your roles are and what your responsibilities are, and set it up so that it wasn't like they were buying, you know, they weren't buying a business that had 150 people, but like three people were the secret to the success of the business. It was like, everybody was great at what they did, and there was a real executive team so that the company wouldn't fall apart if any one person or two or three people left, including myself. So that was a big one. The other thing we did is we looked at the P&L and said, okay, how do we clean this P&L up? So we went and looked at all of the expenses that we had, and we said, okay, some of these expenses are like um, expenses that we've been paying for because we haven't been doing a good job, like rationalizing our expenses. Like somebody signed up for a subscription and they've kept this subscription for a really long time. So let's cancel all of that and clean up the P&L. Let's get rid of any extra costs that don't align with what the business looks like today. Um, let's also focus on, okay, this is what our revenue is. How are we going to grow that revenue consistently? What marketing spend do we need to have to grow that revenue? Let's be really disciplined about how much money we spend marketing, where we spend it, and what kind of return on ad spend we get. Um, so we kind of cleaned up the company for a year before we really even started the M&A process officially.
Got
Um,
it. Got
yeah.
it. Cleaning up the P&L makes a lot of sense. And those subscription costs eat away over a long period of time. That's for sure. That is for sure. So that takes us to the finale question. I love that, the whole articulation. You literally answered all the questions that I normally ask in the story arc there. So taking us to the finale, knowing what you know now, what would you tell Suli 10 years ago?
So many different things. One is probably kind of understand what I think Warren Buffett talks about this a bunch, which is there are good businesses and there are bad businesses. And from the outside, it can be very difficult to differentiate between the two. So understand if the business that you're building is a really good business. And so what I mean by that is um, how vulnerable is it to increases in marketing cost? Um, do you have a direct relationship with your customer that you can maintain and that will endure for a long time? Um, and do you have any moats that prevent competition or that make it easier for you to win against competitors? So I think I think I didn't understand enough, like what's a good business, versus what's a bad business. Um, I think I also was so focused on success that my ass was clenched for the entire period that I was running TinyCo, that I didn't enjoy the experience nearly as much as I
Mm,
could have. Um, I was super stressed out all the time, and I was just like worried about failing and wasn't having nearly the amount of fun I should have. Um, so I think another big thing I would say is just like enjoy the experience and make sure that that's a core part of it. Because you sell the business and then you get a bunch of money, but you're kind of left with then the company is gone, and that part of your life, which for me was my early 30s, is just gone. Um,
mhm.
so make sure you're enjoying your life at that point in time. And
Yeah.
the other two things is I would just eat right and work out. I think that I was so busy treating the game of entrepreneurship like it was a sprint, like I'm going to get to the end, that I didn't eat right or work out. And I would definitely fix those two things.
Nice. Nice. Well said. Well, those are all the questions that I have for you. What are you working on now? And where can people learn more?
You can find me on Twitter or LinkedIn. I am. I've been really excited about what's happening in the world of AI and how that's going to transform the world around us. So I've been looking at starting a whole new business from scratch. After TinyCo, I did a bunch of things. TinyCo was, venture funded, tons of employees, all Silicon Valley employees, unprofitable for probably 50% of the life of it. And after that, I did a bunch of things that were bootstrap, profitable, very few employees. And now I miss the Silicon Valley game of trying to build something really big. So I'm working on figuring out inside the world of AI and robotics, what are cool startups to start, and actively trying to figure out what that could be and start that company this year.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, I'm definitely going to be following along to see what you start next. And trying the different models, I think, is a great takeaway from this too. The bootstrapped profitable model versus the VC route. I think that everybody trying the different routes is very worthwhile just to experience the rocket ship versus the sort of slow profitable grind, and just doing them is fantastic.
Yeah, and I think both are awesome and like fun and have their benefits. I think in Silicon Valley, people shit a lot on bootstrap businesses, and I think that culture is changing in a really positive way. But yeah, I love cash flowing, profitable businesses. I think those are the best.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, wherever you guys are listening on iTunes or Spotify, the links that Suli mentioned will be in the show notes. But thank you so much for coming on and sharing your whole entire story.
Thanks so much for having me, Steve. Good to see you again.